Bullshit.
It's the No Bullshit Marketing Show. I'm Dave Mastovich. The Great Resignation, the Talent Wars, and college graduations all coming together, meaning more and more job interviews. That's why I thought this episode could focus on the 6 steps to storytelling success in job interviews. Number 1, understand their story, the company you're interviewing with. This means looking in multiple places to learn as much as you can about that company, combing through every page of their website, looking at their YouTube presence, their LinkedIn page, anywhere you can find out more about the company to get an understanding of what they do and how they do it. But understanding their story also means looking at leadership, seeing what you can find out on the website about the leadership team, then going to Google, entering their name, clicking the news button so you can see when they were in the news lately, reading what you can about them, checking them out on LinkedIn. It also means working to find out who you might be interviewing with and finding out everything you can about those people. The goal is for you to understand that company and that culture as much as you can so that you can get a feel first for how much you think you match up with them going into the interview and what you might want to learn about them during the interview. That leads to number 2, which is outline the questions that you're going to ask. Now, the questions need to be open-ended, and it's not so much about asking about the job title or the compensation or the weeks off and paid time off policy, although maybe those will come up, maybe they won't. The questions you want to ask are open-ended and in a manner to get that person talking about what you're asking. So you want to ask questions like, what's the one thing that's absolutely needed to succeed in this specific position? The converse can be asked, what's the one thing that will lead or has led to failure in this position? Asking, describe a day in the life of someone at this position and a day in the life of someone not in this position. Ask that interviewee why they chose to work there and why they still work there. So, key to success number 2 is asking questions, but outlining them well before the interview. Number 3 is prepare and practice your story. Your story has to have anecdotes and analogies. And you also have to bring specificity to your successes. You want to tell stories about what you've accomplished. Tell stories about your skills and how they apply to this position. Anecdotes and analogies to make the point. You want to be able to walk through what your communication style is. Why? Because if you can learn what they're looking for and if they know what your communication style is, it's about having a fit. That's why all of these tie together. Understanding their story, number 1. Number 2, preparing and asking questions. Number 3, preparing and practicing your story, because you want your story to include what energizes you and what drains you. You want your story to include your communication style. Wouldn't you rather you know and they know if you're a fit instead of taking a job where maybe you weren't? That's why it's important to ask the questions and to prepare and practice your story in a way that gets to the crux of the matter and sees what that company is all about, what their culture is and core values are, and how that matches with you. Number 4 is listen, and the listening is listening actively, carefully, and beyond words. You're listening for nonverbals and watching for nonverbals. You're listening for inflection. You're listening to hear specifics that they give you about how that position is structured and what type of words they use to describe what you'll be doing, who you'll be doing it with, and how you'll be communicating. Those all tie back to you understanding yourself. And if they talk a lot about how important it is to build relationships and connect quickly and relate to others, and you tend to be more comfortable in an environment where you have time to think and you work more by yourself and you're more of an introvert, learning that and hearing those keywords and phrases can help you to better understand whether you should even pursue this position. Then number 5 is telling your story. Now, when you tell the story, we already talked about preparing and practicing it, but when you actually tell the story, you're going to use inflection. You're going to also leverage silence and pauses. The pause gives them a chance to respond and also lets you pick up their nonverbals and helps you with your pace. The inflection is to emphasize certain words and be able to get you to have that vocal heterogeneity that you want, so there's some variety in how you're telling the story and how you're leveraging the power of storytelling. But also, what's essential is the truth. Tell the truth. Don't give bullshit answers. They're going to ask you some bullshit questions, but you still have to answer them truthfully. They're going to say, tell me about your weaknesses. What's your biggest weakness? And you hear this cliche, oh, my biggest weakness is I care too much. My biggest weakness is I work too hard. No, give a real answer that ties back to who you are. My biggest weakness is I like to have the time to give that type of project what it needs and to give the results and explain those. So when I'm in an environment that pushes me to move quickly and make decisions more on impulses, I'm not going to do as well as I am when I'm in an environment. This isn't me. I'm talking about you. You pick whatever yours is and you tell the truth and you explain it in a manner, because if that is indeed what is going to happen every day in that job, you shouldn't get the job because you're going to fail and you're going to be miserable. So there's no bullshit. You don't exaggerate. There's not the hyperbole. Now, yes, you're going to present yourself in the best possible way around that truth, but embellishing it to the nth degree or making shit up is simply not the way to tell your story. So answer those questions truthfully. Know that some of them are going to come, such as what's your talk to me about a failure and how you overcame it. That should be a great opportunity for you to tell a true story. What happened earlier in my life was X. I had the hurdles of Y and Z. You're talking about your struggles and the barriers you overcame. That's part of the science of storytelling. Our minds go to that when we're hearing someone else talk to us. We go to, I wonder what their struggle was. What barriers did they overcome? Who helped and how? You use that in your telling the story around that supposed failure, the big failure or big obstacle that you had. That's a great opportunity. Don't be afraid that you're going to give up something. No, you hopefully didn't do something criminal and you're going to tell that story. No, but if you had a bump in the road, tell that story truthfully. Talk about the struggle, the barriers, what you overcame, who helped and how, and what the result was and what the lessons learned were. So those are all part of number 5 of your 6 steps to storytelling success in job interviews. The 6th one is close with a memorable anecdote that ties together what your biggest strengths are, what your biggest core values are, and how those match with that company's needs and their core values. Now, here's the key. If you are preparing that anecdote, and it's your go-to closing story, and you realize throughout this interview that they maybe don't fit, you have to close with the same story and talk about it and say, this is the kind of company I want to work for. But that should play a role in whether you choose to take the job if they offer it. Because when you're truthful and when you're telling your story in a truthful manner that presents you in the best way, and when you're talking about culture and core values and mission, vision, and purpose, and when your questions that I said earlier to outline are tied around those things, you and the interviewer are both going to be able to learn more of the truth about each other and whether you're a fit. And isn't that really what we're trying to do? When we're having this great resignation and people are jumping from job to job and they're interviewing at multiple jobs, and we've got this talent war supposedly going on, and now we've got a bunch of new college grads looking to get their jobs. Aren't we really trying to find fits, a fit for each party, a fit for the company so that they can succeed and live that mission and vision and purpose, and have a person who does have the strengths that match up and the culture matches their behavioral needs? That's what we're looking for. So if you follow these 6 steps to storytelling success in job interviews, you will find a better fit, and so will the companies that you're interviewing with. Thanks for listening to another episode of the No Bullshit Marketing Show, recorded here in our studio in bold, beautiful downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Remember, ask yourself, what's the big idea? And build your story around the answer. It's all about bold solutions, no BS.